Okay, so welcome to the Node.js NAPI team meeting for June 8th, 2020. We will follow our standard approach of looking at what we have in the tag for the milestone 11, except that Kevin mentioned that he has something he wants to talk about and has to leave part of the way through, so we should start with that. So take it away, Kevin.
Yes, so I was working on the thread safe function context again, and I've implemented the existing thread safe tests to use the new contexted class, like Gabe had suggested. So I created a new PR for this, and it's the first PR on the list now.
Okay, you want me to share that?
Yes, please.
There we go.
And if you scroll to the very bottom, or that last comment here.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's Node internally seems to be calling the thread safe functions call JS wrapper with an empty environment. And I'm not sure why this is happening. If you click that first link with the changes to do so, so this is real what we needed to do in order to migrate from the old to the new. The changes to this are very small. You see, it's just removing that callback and making it static there.
Right.
So I don't know why it's being called, why Node is calling the thread safe function call.js with an empty environment.
The only reason why that would be happening is if the environment is shutting down. It's basically saying that the environment is shutting down. You can no longer call into JavaScript, but here's the rest of your queue so that you can clean up and be destroyed.
So if you go back now to the comment, there's a stack trace. And one of them is environment close handle. Does that sound like what you're talking about?
Yeah. Close handle is part of the thread safe function cleanup.
So what's happening then is I'm being cleaned up, and that cleanup is calling this call.js internal.
Yep.
Why would that happen? Why would I be getting called if I'm being cleaned up?
Let me see that. Well, the environment might be getting cleaned up, right? So okay, let me find that place in the code. Okay, oh boy, where is that? Trying to figure that out. Okay. Okay, so which close handle is this? Let me see. So it's the UV handle. Oh boy, because there are two concentric close handles.
Close handle with UV.
So there's the async is being closed, and then when the callback for the async happens, then the idle is being closed. Okay, and then okay, it must be the inner one because it calls finalize.
Closes handles, maybe the lead.
Yeah, so here it is. Okay. Okay, so okay. If finalize CB. Okay, so wait a minute. Let me see your stack again. Okay, so close handle calls, what function does it call? What function ends up getting called with a null environment? Call.js? Yeah, call.js
Call JS
internal. Yeah.
internal. Yeah.
Huh. So the only place where we call into the module is from its finalizer.
Hmm.
Interesting. Oh, but no, sorry. Oh yeah, empty queue and delete. There it is. Okay, never mind. So finalize CB gets the environment, but empty queue and delete. Okay, let me go to empty queue and delete. Right. Okay, so if you look at empty queue and delete, in the thread safe function implementation, it does that just before it deletes the thread safe function itself. It calls the callback, what is that called? Call.js. It calls call.js with the rest of the contents of the queue, but with the environment set to null pointer and the JS callback set to null pointer. And that the reason it does that is to give the thread safe function a chance to delete the remaining items on the queue, so as to prevent a memory leak. That's why that's happening. So basically what I think is happening in the test is that the thread safe function, and maybe you may have exposed a bug that was always there in the test because you didn't change anything in the way that the timings were done and the point in time at which the thread safe function was being released. But you may have exposed a timing bug that was always there. It just never happened, right? So basically, my suspicion is that the thread safe function is being released too soon, and so the last release will cause it to start to get finalized, and then the queue is not empty yet, and so the rest of the queue is being sent to call.js using a null environment and the null uh, JS callback.
But why would it
That's
try to finalize the environment if the queue is not empty yet?
no, not the environment, just the thread safe function,
The
right?
thread safe function. I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the environment is fine, I think, in this case. It's just the thread safe function is being released too soon, and so it starts to finalize before the queue is empty. Basically for the purposes of the tests, you need to know what it is that you're expecting back from the thread safe function, and you must only uh, uh, release the thread safe function from the main thread once you have received everything. So if you call stop threads um, um, uh, immediately, then you're basically announcing a race between the thread safe function finishing and finishing processing and calling the JS the call.js for everything, and the thread safe function beginning to tear down, right? And so what you must do on the JavaScript side is you must call stop threads in response to the last item that you expect to receive. And then by then, all the other threads will have released the thread safe function, and the last thread to release the thread safe function will be the main thread when stop threads goes from JavaScript back into native and does the final release on the main thread. And then the finalizer will be called, and by then the queue will be empty because you know for sure that call.js was called with every item that was expected to arrive from secondary threads since call.js was the one to initiate the final release. So then you have a guarantee that there won't be nothing on the queue before the finalize. I hope that makes sense.
It does. So you're thinking that I'm trying to release the thread safe function, and after I release it, I'm then trying to do another call? No, no,
No,
no, no, no, no.
no. What,
No.
what I'm saying is what I'm saying is what I'm suspecting is that you're doing like a fire and forget thing, right?
Yeah.
You're saying that okay, create threads, stop threads, right? One after another in JavaScript. And so what that will do is it'll cause like stop threads will cause the main thread to release, right? Which is good, but then all the secondary threads release the thread safe function as well, right? And
No, the secondary threads aren't releasing it until it finishes processing. Like
oh yeah. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, they don't release it sooner than they normally would. Yes, they finish processing, they put everything on the queue, and then they release the thread safe function. But what happens is you end up with a bunch of at least one outstanding async callback in the event loop in such a way that there are no more references to the thread safe functions, because the threads have finished processing, the main thread have finished sending their stuff, the main thread has also released the thread safe function, and inside the event loop there is at least one pending UV async callback, right? Which would result on the in JavaScript side in like a continuous invocation um, of the process one item thing, which would eventually call back, and it would call JS, right? But because they have all released the thread safe function, right, that loop will happen not as part of the normal operations of the thread safe function, but as part of the cleanup of the thread safe function, this empty queue and delete function, right? Because there are no more references to it. There's just a bunch of stuff in a queue and no more references to the thread safe function. So the only thing the thread safe function can do at that point is to just say, hey, here's your queue. You've already deleted me, so you can't call into JavaScript anymore, but make sure you get rid of these pointers, right? Like, it's not even safe to use the thread safe function pointer anymore, right? Because it's already finalized, right? It's just the only
So,
thing you can do is take care of those pointers in however way you see fit without calling into JS.
so does that mean if I do a thread safe function call and then a thread safe function release, if my item is not processed by the time I do the release, then my environment is empty?
Uh, yes and no. It is safe. It is safe to just call and then immediately release on a secondary thread, right? But it is not.
I see. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to prevent one release until all items are processed, and that one release is usually the one on the main thread. You want to keep that
Yes.
reference,
Okay.
right?
So
But
then the
all the
main,
secondary threads, they can indeed just fire and forget. That's fine. But the
yes.
main thread must first receive all the expected items and only then release the thread safe function.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening then.
Yeah.
Is
In
that
fact,
what's
I
happening
also have
right
a
here,
PR.
or
Sorry.
is that what's happening right here? And what I'm like,
I'm fairly certain. The reason I'm fairly
Yeah.
certain is because I just did a PR that runs the tests in worker threads, and I ran into the same problem. I had to adjust one of the thread safe function threads. I believe, since you copied the thread safe function tests, I believe that I also uncovered the same race that you uncovered, because they run differently now that they run in worker threads. So I also ran into the same problem, and I realized, wait a minute, you can't just stop you can't just release the thread safe function on the main thread until you have everything that you expect. Otherwise, you're not going to have everything that you expect.
I see.
So
Okay.
yeah, it was called test thread safe function sum, and it was returning 0 instead of the expected sum. And the reason why it was returning 0 is because it was releasing too soon. And because it's on a worker thread, the worker thread would just quit entirely. And so it would compute the sum with whatever it had at hand, which was 0. So yeah, that was the problem.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense then. Yeah. So I'll take a look into that and hopefully get back to you.
All right, thanks.
And then
okay,
that's all that
sounds
I.
good.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go back to the things that we've got tagged here. The next Node add-on API release. So we did do security releases last week. If people noticed, we did a matched NAPI release along with the main release. Gabriel, you were working on a backport, I think, for
Yeah.
a potential one other 2.x release, right?
Yes, I was. It is number 723 and it's a pull request.
Okay. Pull request 7. I know there was a reasonable amount of work there.
Yeah, yeah, some of the commits needed to be backported to 2.x.
Okay, but it's all ready to go, and
Yeah, there are four clean commits that I backported, and there was one commit that I needed to write from scratch, which was reviewed by Anna and by Lucas.
okay.
Because on old Node.js, which is supported in 2.x, we need to free things differently, because otherwise you get a double free.
Okay, so which one was the one that was the last one, or?
Yeah, the last commit, yeah, is that.
Okay, good. So we should plan for a release of the 2.x based with once we land this,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
okay.
and I'm not sure, like in this case, it would be warranted to test, because these are like genuine code changes rather than changes to code that is
Yep.
essentially dead. So I'm
Yep.
not sure how we're going to do that. We need to sort of turn back the clock to the platforms on which we tested during the 2.x time frame.
Right. Is it because changes to the tests or to the CI job are going to be a problem?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what it is that we've changed since then. Maybe I should have a look at the Travis YML differences since 2.x. But yeah, I mean, we can just try to run it on the CI.
Yeah, like we can still specify old versions of Node on the CI.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay.
All right. So yeah,
Okay.
I guess I can run the CI on this thing and see how it fares.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. And then we can hopefully do a release and close that out.
Yep.
That's good. Okay. Oh, where are we back to? Okay, transferring the API tutorials to the OpenJS Foundation. I know, Jim, you've been working on that.
Yeah, so I have a Gatsby site going now that includes the it copies the live source code into the examples. The one thing I'm working on now is, yeah, let's see. Yeah, right there, Michael.
You want me to go to? Okay.
Package.json.
Yeah.
That is live code from an example.
Okay.
So if you click on the blue package.json there, it'll take you to the example in its context.
Okay.
So I'm really pleased with that. What I'm working on now is implementing a full text search, and that involves getting my hands dirty with deeper into the Gatsby. So that's taking a bit of time. But I feel as soon as I get the search going, then I think we'll be ready to roll this out.
Okay. The one thing I notice is ISC is not on the Foundation's pre-approved list.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
MIT would be easier. I mean, we can ask for like a one-off permission, but
oh no,
if it can be MIT, that'd be easier.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. Yeah, I can put in a PR to make that happen.
Okay.
And yeah, I think ISC is the default for when you just do npm init. It just
I know it is.
Enter, and it sets it to ISC.
Okay.
The other question is, do you need me to turn on the GitHub pages?
I don't think we're to that stage yet, Michael. The next question is specifically how we're going to do the GitHub pages. Apparently we can do it on a branch, or we can do it from a directory. And so when we turn it on, we'll probably want to know which approach we're taking at that point. And I'm not to the point yet to know which would be preferred in this particular case.
Okay, yeah, once you figure that out, let us know. It seems like my initial feeling is like, unless there's a reason to have it on a branch, it might be nicer just to have it in master, right? But maybe there's some reason why that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is so simple. It's not like it's, you know, undergoing continual changes on many branches. So
Can the tutorials be used if you were to clone the repo and just browse into that directory? Can they be used from there? Like, would you see anything
oh,
meaningful if you were just to download it and then open it in your file explorer?
yeah, I would imagine, yeah, that the
Oh, because it's all Markdown, right? So
well,
if you have like an offline
yes,
Markdown editor,
there would be actually two versions. There would be the Markdown version and then the generated site, all of the HTML and the CSS and all of that stuff.
right?
So those would both be in the repo. Because in order to publish it, I believe the HTML has to be in the repo if we're using GitHub Pages.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And is it, yeah, because that checkout, like, you know, if we were to do, say, a lab or a tutorial at a conference, you'd probably want that checkout and clone and then follow the steps, right?
I think it has another implication if we have it on master. If I'm not mistaken, we'd have to add like a .npm ignore so that the files don't end up in npm releases, because I don't think we want to bundle. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably the whole Gatsby directory would want to be excluded from npm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
okay.
good point.
So a branch may make sense.
Yeah. The other nice thing is, Michael, we've got links up at the top that take you to other resources for NAPI. So
that's quite nice.
It could be a really good landing page for people who are just getting started with NAPI.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So while we're here, I do have a question on work that Gabriel's doing on the examples. And if we were to go to the examples repo, there, one of the examples that Gabriel's been working on is the old original object wrap. It's number 6 in the list, object wrap. Whoops. Oh, if we go back, Michael.
Sorry, that's, you mean here, right? Okay.
Yeah. And we could do the Node add-on API.
Okay. Yeah.
And if we look at, let's say myObject.h, and Gabriel has been working on this. If you notice, there's a static function reference for this guy. Now, if we go to the C code, if we go to the myObject.cc, we can see that used down at the bottom. I am baffled as to why somebody would want to do this in this day and age.
Exactly, because it's not from this day and age.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, so okay, that's good. So I think at some point, once we get the new site up, and once, Gabriel, you've done all your work, I think we're going to want to mark some of the stuff deprecated. Like, this is good for historic, but it's not a model that you want to follow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was actually going to bring this up if we had time during the meeting, like, because I did send that PR that would remove all these static references. But the question is, do we just update the examples, or do we mark these as no, these are for historical reasons only, and do we create new examples somewhere, you know, which use the proper per instance data, because per instance data is still pretty new, right? So it is available now in all LTS versions, but I mean, it's not there in like 8 and 6 and all those. So I know we don't support them, but I mean, if people run those examples, and if people run code against 8 and 6, then this stuff will not work. It just simply won't be there. In fact, for instance, data, if I'm not mistaken, is NAPI 6, and there are still many versions of Node, like 12 and 10, that don't have NAPI 6. So if we update the examples, then, you know, we need to think about these things as well. In fact, per add-on instance data is so new that not even the Travis, not even Travis has the right version of Node by default.
Yeah.
So if you ask for
How-
Node 12, it'll give you a version of Node that has an API 5. So that's why the CI for this PR fails.
Can we update the examples to, you know, do it one way if it's NAPI 6 or the old way if it's NAPI 5?
Well, yeah, well, it, yeah. The thing is though, like you kind of don't want to make these decisions at compile time, right? So if you want continuity from NAPI 5 to 6, then you really want to do this at runtime, and I think we actually can, because in NAPI 5 we had the environment cleanup hooks, so we could do it in such a way that it relies on environment cleanup hooks in NAPI 5 and
Mhm.
for instance that in NAPI 6, but that complicates the example though, right? Because environment cleanup hooks, the pointer that you clean up in an environment cleanup hook needs to be passed around, right? It doesn't get stored on the environment, so it needs to be passed around, meaning that all your callbacks now have to have a data parameter which they retrieve along with the function arguments, right? And so that means you're modifying every last binding to do that, and that was the way we did it before, right? Before we stored any kind of data on the environment, that's how we did it, and that was the recommended way to do context sensitive add-ons before we had the per add-on instance data. But now that we have the per add-on instance data, I'd hesitate to create a complicated example only to simplify it later, you know. And having a switch that happens at runtime will also make the example more complicated than it needs to be, right? So
Yeah, it's just like my thinking is like, if you have an example there, even if it's deprecated, people will find it and copy it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be a good idea to have the latest and greatest and cleanest code possible, right?
Right, but if there is concern that, like, you know, even Travis doesn't have the new enough version of Node, that's why I was thinking if the actual one example, even if it was compile time, you know, if compile time it was relatively straightforward to have some if defs or whatever, then, you know,
Yeah.
that would be showing like, hey, this is the way, and with some comments that says, you know, this is what you had to do, but don't do this because blah blah blah, right? Then people, when they copy that code or come to it, it'd be harder to miss, I think, by having it all in one file, in one example, versus having two examples where you have to find the right one.
Yeah. That's true. I'm just
And it's
thinking
a
that.
compile time thing that doesn't sound like, it's kind of like if you're targeting NAPI 6, then here's, otherwise if you're targeting NAPI 5, well then, you know, or 3 or whatever that earlier one would be.
Yeah, no, five, I think 4 or 5 had the environment clean. No, I think maybe 4 had the environment cleanup hooks, and that's pretty well disseminated by now. So I'm just thinking maybe I shouldn't even use the per instance data. Maybe I should use cleanup hooks. But you know what? The funny thing is, I don't think we ever implemented cleanup hooks properly in Node.js API. We had like a cleanup class going at some point, but I don't remember us merging it
I
in.
don't think we landed that, no.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of need to do that first, and then it would require a high version of Node.js API, but that's fine. So I'm thinking maybe we should do the context sensitive stuff with we should land that first and then do the context sensitive stuff using the cleanup hooks for now, because that is the best disseminated. Or by the time we finish this work, you know, we will have the instance data, in which case,
Right.
you know, it's kind of a race between these two.
So today it just doesn't get cleaned up, and I think that didn't matter before, right? Because
no,
you didn't
it's
have
worse.
threads.
It's worse. Having a global static means that if 2 different worker threads load the same instance of the add-on, then
Right.
you know they will be, you know, clobbering the global static as they initialize.
That only matters for 12 and above, right? Is it?
I guess, yeah. I mean, whichever version has worker threads with a
Right,
flag or without.
I think 12 is where they're. I thought we had this discussion the other week, and it was turned out to be 12.
Probably, yeah.
So, I mean, 12 and 14 have the per instance data.
Yes, they all do. They all do
Right.
now. Even 10, I think, has, yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah, 10 has the per instance data as well. It's just older versions of 10 and older versions of 12 don't.
Right.
I mean, so much so that we can't even test this on Travis.
Right. Now that's the, so Travis, how far back is Travis?
I checked. It was it was in the 12 point something teen, and I think, or I forget, or 10 point something teen, and 10.20 has it, I think. But let me check 12. Where was that PR? Okay, Node add-on examples.
I mean, I guess I'm still thinking the, so like it only matters in 12 and 14. And there's some versions of 12 that I don't, because I think worker threads were backported to 12, weren't they?
We can check the code in a second. Got a reference. Okay, so let's see, what was it that failed? Yeah, 12.x on Ubuntu, and the rest were stopped. What is going on here? Oh boy, I'm just checking these. Oh, here's the pull request, or the CI rather. Okay, so the build failed. Okay. Wait a minute, the build failed on node 8. Why are we running this build against node 8? That's strange. So, okay, so it looks like I was wrong. This is actually passing. That, like, the Travis is passing. I don't know why all these GitHub actions were canceled and or failed. But the Travis is passing. It's just we're running on node 8, which is not necessarily a good thing.
We may not have turned that off yet, that's all.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, maybe I'll update the PR to include the removal of node 8, but a GitHub action against node 12 also failed, and I'm trying to figure out what happened. Okay, nappy env has no member named get instance data. Why not? Okay, all right. Well, I have to figure this one out, I think, because we are passing on node 10, but is it because we're not running get instance data? Huh. Oh, it works just fine. Oh, all right. Okay. So yeah, I have to figure this one out. Maybe I'm wrong about this, because it's working on Travis. I just have to drop the AI.
Right. I mean, I think you know the main thing was, at least from my perspective, having a single example probably makes more sense. And
oh, you mean have like a context? Yeah.
Well, like rather than having like one example that's like, here's a deprecated example, a new example, it's more like, can we make one example? Because otherwise you can just imagine somebody finding the old example and copying that, right?
Well, okay, then I misunderstood. I thought you meant make an example that says context sensitive, and then give that as an example and leave everything else untouched, but I guess not.
No, I was more like, update this one example to do the right thing, possibly with some if-defs that say, you know, if I'm NAPI 6, I can do this. If I'm NAPI 5, then I need to do something else, or 4, or whatever the level is.
Okay,
right? Because then that sort of gives back to like to the author, depending on what version of NAPI they want to support, it gives them what they need to do, right?
Okay, but why update only one example? All the examples that use object wrap, they all use this global
No,
static.
I don't know. Okay, then update them all to be like that. But we started off the discussion of should we deprecate these and create a new set?
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm just thinking like having the same example in two different places just means the person's probably going to find the wrong one.
Yeah, at least.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be 50-50.
So
We're slashing the
having
effectiveness of our dissemination.
like if we totally mangle it, maybe there's a good reason to break them up, but otherwise like putting them into one maybe makes more sense. It's just where I was coming
Okay.
from.
Yeah,
Like,
I posted another object. I may be part of the problem here. I posted another object wrap example here. So it would be good to get it down to one, I think. And I think, okay, go ahead.
I think multiple object wrapped examples might be good if they're trying to show different things or something.
Because
Yeah,
they are.
yeah.
I'm more from like, if it's like one's like deprecated and one's a replacement, that's where I start
yes,
to worry.
yes, yeah.
Not that we don't have multiple examples, it's just those multiple examples
we kind of,
go ahead.
We have the history, right? I mean, people can just go back and Git and see what they look like if they want the old behavior, right? I mean,
yeah, that's true too.
That's what Git is all about, right? Is just look at the old version.
I think there's another PR on that. I think what prompted this whole discussion is there's another PR. Let's see. Oh, it's right. I think it's the second one in the list.
This one?
Yeah, where somebody came across this example, deployed it, and then said, "Oh my gosh, it's not right." So I think already this example has caused people problems.
Right.
Which one is this? Oh, multiple load object wrap. Yes. Okay, good. So we have that one covered.
Yeah. So I think people use the examples to say, okay, I need to do this. How do I do it? And then they pull up the example and then they follow it slavishly without understanding all of the implications. And that if the example's not correct, then they have problems. So,
and this person has found the problem, realized the problem, and fixed the problem.
Correct.
Right. Now, is this a replacement for the other one, or is this, or is this like multiple load?
Oh, I think it's a new example. Oh yeah, okay, I see. Okay, yeah, I remember the discussion. So so this discussion started in Node.js on API, and this person wanted to illustrate loading, so starting two worker threads in parallel and loading the add-on from both worker threads, right? Because they found that that they were crashing, and so. And I remembered, if I remember correctly, the crash. It might have been that it might have been that handle scope thing that you're working on, Michael.
Right.
But basically, the solution was to not use global static in their case. So that was not really what was causing the crash. Like it was the handle scope, but that was just a coincidence. And so I rewrote the tests, and so that's why the PR in Node.js on API, right, to run the test worker threads. But this person wanted not to just start a process, start a worker thread, run the test, stop the worker thread, stop the process. They wanted to have two different worker threads in a process loading the same add-on to illustrate why it is important to not have global statics, right? And so I guess they ended up doing that as an example in Node.js on examples, as a new example.
Right, and I guess here I did suggest a new example. So
yeah. So then we can review that, and it makes sense that.
Okay, yes.
But does that still mean though that the other one should be updated in some way, or like am I just contradicted myself in saying here that we should have a new one versus having one?
Well, I mean, the community has sort of spoken, but by providing us a new example, right? So
right.
the community has moved in a different direction, right? With this PR, but that does not preclude us from updating ours, right? Like our examples.
Well, the other thing is like 10 though still requires, like my concern was like this was saying it would only work with a later version of Node, right? So I didn't want to.
It should work with 10 though. It should work with 10. Like the latest version of 10 has instance data.
Right, but 10 doesn't have the threads, I think, and the cleanup for the threads. I don't.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh no,
Or
no,
it
no,
do-
no. 10
it
doesn't have the
workers.
10, no, that's right. That's right. 10 doesn't have the cleanup, the thread cleanup, but it does have worker threads, meaning that it is still important to illustrate that it is still important to avoid using a global statics, even in 10. And so this example is relevant for 10 because it shows how not to use global statics and still store stuff per instance.
But it would need a different implementation for 10.
No, because set instance data is available. It would need the environment cleanup hooks for early versions of 10, but for the latest version of 10, it wouldn't.
Oh, okay. Well, my here was like if we're, we don't want to change the existing test to only run on 14 because we still should be testing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Or
yeah.
if having an example that runs on 10 and 12, but.
Yeah, let me see that. Because like they did change that. So let's see to what it is that they changed it. Files changed.
But I mean, I think, they came across the problem. So 730 is one I think that's related to the one I want to try and get landed today.
Oh yeah, the engine is still there. Why is this outdated? The engines thing is still there in the PR. Why is this marked as outdated? Like,
but I think I think it's not going to run properly in 10. Because I don't think that cleanup on worker shutdown was in 10.
No, but what I'm saying, the point of this PR is startup, not shutdown, though, right? Because like this is about when you initialize the class, when you initialize the constructor, you store it in a place where multiple threads will not clobber each other's initialization.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
So even though on 10 it doesn't get cleaned up at the end, in neither of them will it get clobbered now with this change.
Okay, but it sounded like, well, maybe yeah. Okay, so maybe it won't get cleaned up in 10, but it would still run. Okay, now yeah, I was assuming that there was some dependency. It's just it won't be as good in 10, but it'll be worse. Yes. It'll be no worse in 10.
That's right. Yes.
Because it wouldn't in 10. It wouldn't be cleaned up today either. It just still won't be cleaned up. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So yeah. So in that case.
Yeah, I think we should land this, and I'll figure out what's wrong with mine, and then we'll go from there.
And then it may be that this should replace the other one after all. If multiple load, like will multiple load work with 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean we have worker threads.
So if we have one that will work with all, then it would be back to maybe we can update the original.
yeah, which is what my PR is doing.
Okay.
Once I figure out how to fix the tests.
But I think we just need to make sure we don't, like, let's not clobber this PR having me asked it to be a different one, if you know what I mean. And then it'd be annoying if we then update the original one.
The only thing, no, because this PR does add more value than just illustrating avoiding the global static. It also adds value by illustrating how to launch multiple worker threads, each of which load the add-on, right?
Okay.
Because the other examples, because they stem from a time when Node.js didn't even have worker threads, they simply illustrate good form, but they do not illustrate the effects of good form in that if you do load it multiple times, it will work and it will not break anything.
Right.
Whereas
Okay.
this PR also illustrates what happens when you actually do it, because the JavaScript for this PR is more complex than the JavaScript for
Right.
for
Okay.
the other
Okay.
for the
So
other
right.
example.
So this one can be, if you're using threads, here's an example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It provides value in two ways. It illustrates the correct construction on the native side, and it illustrates the usage on the JavaScript side.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I forget now how we got there. We were talking about the tutorials, right? Okay. So Jim, back to you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to continue work on digging into Gatsby to get the search going. As we discussed last week, Michael, there are two ways to do it. One is local, where
Mhm.
it builds the index as part of the CI, and then there's another option where you use an external service that does it for you. So I'm looking at the local version because this is very small, and it reduces another dependency on another service. So
Yeah, I know. I think if we could do it as like GitHub Action or whatever locally, that would definitely be great.
yeah, so that's where we're at with that. I'm like I said, continuing to get into Gatsby to figure out how to do the search. But I'm really happy with what we've got so far.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's looking pretty nice. I guess do we have, I'm just thinking like opportunities. Do we, NodeConf EU, would we want to propose a workshop there for any PI using these?
We could, we were declined. Well, we did it 2 years ago. We were declined last year. I'm personally, I'm not sure how much traveling I'm doing.
Well, I don't think it's virtual.
Oh, it's virtual.
Right, it's virtual, so there's no travel.
Oh,
That's why I'm just thinking like it doesn't, we don't need to travel. It doesn't really cost us much to propose one.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. The question is, what would we be bringing? That would be the question.
We would probably, though we have the workshop there, right? Which
Yes.
it would basically, we would be there to help people through problems.
Ah, okay.
So it's kind of, it's not that, I mean, it's like a lot of the workshops where it's like, hey, you can go off and self-directed go through them. Maybe we do a bit of an intro, but other than that, it's that, we have people there. They must be planning for a way that we could interact with people and help them.
Wow, it just occurred to me in this discussion that of all the workshops, we're probably most ideally set up for remote because we've got all the material out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah, I could do that, Michael. I could put together a proposal. Yeah, let's do
good.
that.
I mean, it seems like we've got all the material. It's a place to promote it, and in the worst case, they say no, right? So.
Right. So essentially, what we're saying is we would make team members available for a window of time.
Yep.
To work with people who are working on NAPI projects. And if they don't have one, if they're just getting started, they could work through the tutorials. We would be there to answer questions.
Yeah, I mean, we could pitch it just like we did before. It's like we will run a workshop where the main focus is people can work through the content we have here. And there'll be the team members there to help them with questions and problems.
Yeah.
And then similarly, we might do an intro, and if people are working on their own things, we can also, have a time to chat about that.
Yeah. Okay, I think I've got the parameters, Michael. I could put together a proposal. And do you want to open up an issue for that?
Sure. Why don't I do that right now? New issue.
And when is that scheduled?
It's in November sometime.
Okay.
Now they just extended the proposal. they just extended the CFP. So it was, I think, ending last month, but I think it goes for a little longer.
Okay, it was not on my radar at all.
No, I was just thinking, wasn't thinking about it, but I should have been. Similarly, like if there's other conferences, virtual conferences, I think it'd be worthwhile for us to keep in mind that, you know, we have good content that you've worked on here, and
Yeah,
you know, spending the hours to show up and help do it as a workshop makes sense.
yeah. What about Node JavaScript? What is it? JavaScript Interactive?
OpenJS World?
Oh, is that what it is now?
Yeah,
No,
that's only 2 weeks from now, so I think that one we've missed.
no, I think the one in
Possibility.
Austin in December.
Well, that last year it was in December.
Okay, I am confused.
Yeah.
I think I did a look. It was interactive. Whatever the
Node plus JS Interactive was last December.
I thought I saw for 2020 that they're trying to get it. It was going to be in June. I thought I saw something on the internet that they're trying to make it in December.
No, it's June. It's virtual.
Okay. So, do we want to do that one for that? I guess it's too late for that.
It's too late. Yeah, I think we're too late
okay.
for that one. Like
okay, got it. Okay, got it, Michael.
Possibly next year, but yeah, that one. But if there's any other like Node workshops or, you know, conferences that we see, we can keep it in mind.
Okay. Okay, I'll work on this, Michael.
Okay, sounds good. Oops, milestone. Okay, yeah, we only got 5 minutes, so let's tracking modules that we've issued ported. I don't see 17 days, so you guys probably talked about that last time. I think one thing that was pointed out was npm we're up over 1 million downloads per week, which is quite a good milestone, and continuing to go up. So that's great news.
Pretty cool.
Probably something we want to promote at some
Yeah.
point, but
So something must have landed.
yeah, well, I think there was at least 1 or 2 that had some pretty significant downloads, but it seems to continually be going up. So
The SQLite is still on hold.
okay,
It's live in the repo, but they've not done a npm module on it yet.
okay,
And that's a Semver major. So I imagine we won't see much of an uptick on that until people start adopting the version 5.
right. But it'll certainly make a difference too, because that one has a lot of downloads, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Since we don't have too much time, I'm going to just flip back. Any other issues in the repos that we should discuss in the last couple minutes?
Just thinking about that handle scope thing that you're working on.
Yep.
I think I ran the CI on it, but no, wait, I couldn't. There was something really strange. Node test pull request didn't exist as a CI job last night when I tried to, because I tried to run another CI on it, and
okay, I launched one today.
Oh, good.
So I was planning to hopefully get it landed. Let's see, where are we?
We also need to backport that before we can land. Before we can do stuff on Node add-on API, because it's always failing with that handle scope thing.
Okay, so Node here. Sorry, let me. Okay, so yeah, I hope to. I have lots of meetings, but I hope to get that today. I did. Yeah, that's weird. If there was no.
Yeah, I typed in
what would have been going
on, and there was no such thing. It was really weird. There might have been some maintenance on the CI, if you know about that, because it was really weird.
Yeah, I never would have heard of that. Okay, so this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this morning I kicked off one, which
There's
Looks
some
like
stuff.
it was not green. Okay, well.
That's fine. These are probably unrelated, and you can
Yeah,
just
they're
resume.
probably. Yeah, is it resume that we do now?
Yeah, resume. Yeah, because that
Or
will save.
rebuild?
No, resume.
Resume this one? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure. Okay, so I will. So that's this one now, is it?
Yeah, because then you get the ones that passed for free.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure because rebuild kind of did that for a little while, I think. Okay. Resume.
It'll post that, but go
Okay.
right ahead.
Sure. Well, it's funny. Yeah. So yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it'll post it. Okay.
Yeah, none of
see.
the actions seem to have failed, so that's good.
No, yeah, I had to fix it up because like I did have a memory leak in the test, and I'd used which worked on Linux but not on other platforms. So I fixed those up. Okay. Any other issues we should talk about or?
Not off the top of my head.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Then I'll see everybody in GitHub and talk to everybody next week.
Bye-bye.
Yep, talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Thanks. Thanks for everybody's time. Bye.